currency. Okay, so let's go to Ernie. Ernie's a good friend on Facebook, and we're going to give him $10 of Bitcoin. Ernie says, okay, Jim, here's my question. And I just lost the page. Do you think that Biden inflation will cause rents to go up faster than the COLA adjustments the feds are making to Social Security benefits? Are those of us on a fixed income screwed? Well, Ernie, I'm sorry to say yes, you are. The COLA, it's just ridiculous, the COLA. The government has always understated inflation, always has, always will. And this time, though, it's going to go to epic proportions because the Biden administration, Ernie, cannot honestly admit what the inflation rate is. And I would be willing to tell you, I would guess that on food, it's at least 20 to 30% is the inflation rate from what I've seen. And a lot of these numbers they're giving you are just BS numbers, these inflation numbers. I mean, there's no way anybody could, with a straight face that's a real economist, claim that our actual inflation rate is below 10%. I mean, it's got to be way above that. I mean, and a lot of these inflation numbers, they call it so-called core inflation, where they exclude food and energy prices. What? Those are the two things that affect most of us directly, food and gas. So yeah, those on a fixed income, as you put it, Ernie, are screwed. Unfortunately, it's going to be tough because rents are going to skyrocket, not only because of inflation, but also because a lot of these poor landlords. I met with a good friend, Tom, who's here on Facebook. He invited me out to New Smyrna Beach for coffee. He lives down in Melbourne now. He called me up. A guy follows us for years here, wanted to meet up with me. Incredible guy, both a doctor and a lawyer. And says, hey, you want to come out and have coffee? And I said, for sure. And he has 11 rental properties. And he was telling me that for almost a year, he couldn't collect rent on some of those properties. He said most of his were okay because most of his people weren't in a situation where they could claim a COVID hardship. But on some of his, and he said, look, I don't know how any landlord could really make it if most of their properties, the tenants didn't pay and had a legit COVID hardship. So you've got landlords who have been really, really hurt financially because of tenants not paying rent because of COVID hardships. So you've got that factor that they've got to make that money up. But then you just have the reality of, your landlord's got to pay more for insurance, got to pay more for repairs and maintenance, got to pay more for, everything, for their own personal life. Their own costs are going up. So yeah, the rents are going to go up and the cost of buying real estate is going to go up. It's going to be tough for people. I'm working on a book right now on how to move to Florida. And one of the things that I'm getting into right now is a really interesting chapter, Ernie, where I'm talking about some of the alternative, home situations that people have, alternative residential options. So living in a camper is an option. Now, that might sound like a terrible life to live in a camper, but campers are pretty nice now. And you go on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, you can get nice campers for $5,000-$6,000, and you can rent spaces for $400 or $500 to live on. Also, live aboard a boat. That's another thing I'm writing about in this chapter is what some people are doing. You could buy yourself a nice sailboat for $5,000 or $10,000, live aboard, pay $400 or $500 a month to rent a slot in a marina, live aboard a sailboat. These are some alternatives that people are looking at as the cost of housing is getting completely out of control. Let me check the phone.